Hi, my name is Denise Harlow with the National Community Action Partnership, and today we're talking about the Center for Excellence Developed CSBG organizational standards. This topic we're going to be focused on is human resource management. This is the first subcategory under operations and accountability. HR and boards, you know that you have as a board one employee that you're primarily caring about and worrying about, and that's your chief executive, your executive director or CEO. You certainly set personnel policies and set a personnel framework for the remainder of the staff, but you hold your ED accountable, right? You hire and supervise that individual. You look at compensation and you evaluate that person. And these set of standards around human resources will address both what you need to do for your chief executive as well as what you do for the remainder of your staff. So let's look at 7.1. Regarding all of your staff, the organization has written personnel policies that have been reviewed by an attorney and approved by the governing board within the past 5 years. As with the bylaws, this is one of two categories that need a legal review. If an agency gets into trouble, oftentimes, or if there's a lawsuit, oftentimes it is HR related, and it's vitally important that those personnel policies are up to date with current HR law and personnel related matters. 7.2. The organization makes available the employee handbook or its personnel policies, if you don't have a separate handbook, to all staff and notify staff of all changes. Certainly this is a staff function to get this information out, but if there's any changes to those personnel policies, again, that does get sent out to all staff. 7.3, again, this is a staff function, but the organization has written job descriptions for all positions which have been updated within the past 5 years. If you have 15 people sitting in the position of bus driver 1, you only need one job description for bus driver 1. You don't need 15 individuals descriptions. It is for the position type, not for the individual staff members. 7.4, the governing board conducts a performance appraisal of the chief executive director within each calendar year. Now for you as a board, you may have different ways that you do an evaluation of the chief executive. The critical factor here is that you do an evaluation. Now, we oftentimes will see that agencies perhaps have not evaluated the CEO or executive director recently. It may be more sporadic, but this does call for it every calendar year. This was to help, it should be every year on an annual basis, but we wanted to give agencies flexibility. So if it happened in November of one year and it didn't happen until December the next year, we didn't want agencies to be out of compliance. So as long as it happens once sometime during 2015, once during 2016, once in 2017, once in 2018, you're good to go. It doesn't have to be exactly 12 months apart. But that evaluation should be done. Oftentimes it is done perhaps. All board members may complete an evaluation document. It's somehow encapsulated, and there are different ways that boards share that information with the chief executive, whether through a board chair, an executive committee, or the full board. There's no one right way to do it, and there are a lot of tools out there to help you figure out what's the best way for you. Standard 7.5, this kind of goes hand in hand with the evaluation that the board reviews and approves that executive director's compensation every calendar year, that same cycle, right? That review of compensation happens at least once in 2015, once in 2016, once in 2017. And for both this and the evaluation that review and that evaluation happened, and that's noted in the minutes. That's how you document as a board that these actions took place. So that you've reviewed and that you've reviewed that compensation. And people say, well, why does this have to be done so frequently? Board members are entitled and should know what the executive director is making, what that compensation package looks like. There might be a different type of retirement package. They may be at will. They might be a contract employee. It's just good for the board to be refreshed periodically on what that package looks like. There are new board members periodically coming in and coming out. It is the board's responsibility to know and understand what that compensation looks like. 7.6. Let's talk about evaluations for everybody else. Now, ideally, the standard would say every employee gets an evaluation every year, and ideally that is what happens within an organization. But it's tough for an organization to document that every staff member perhaps had an evaluation when staff come and go. There are hirings, there are layoffs, there are people leave on their own volition. There are a variety of ways that sometimes that can be a challenge. So here the bylaw or the standards say that the organization has a policy in place for regular written evaluations by employees by their supervisors. And odds are that policy, in some way, shape, or form, is probably going to be approved by you as possibly either part of the HR policy or if you have another board-approved policy manual. Again, different boards do it different ways. 7.7, the organization has a whistleblower policy that's been approved by the governing board. Odds are you've probably already done this back in the Sarbanes-Oxley era. A number of years ago, it was found that those whistleblower policy issues may also need to be complied with by nonprofit organizations. Your IRS Form 990 asks whether or not you have a whistleblower policy, so you probably already have one. This basically says to make sure that you do, that it's documented, and again, this is something that's just continually in place. So once you document that you have it in place, then you are good to go as an organization. 7.8, all staff participate in a new employee orientation within 60 days of hire. Again, this is something that certainly staff would be implementing. You just want to make sure that there's a policy in place that this is happening. You may want to talk about it as part of your personnel committee to making sure that that orientation is taking place and that it's in place for staff when they come on board. Many of you have staff who are doing this orientation much quicker than a 60-day window. But again, this is trying to take into account very rurally challenged organizations where you may have staff hundreds of miles apart from each other, and sometimes that orientation may be delayed a bit due to weather. It could be delayed due to a number of different reasons. This also doesn't mean it has to happen face-to-face. This can also happen by web. There are other ways to do this nowadays with technology. Finally, 7.9. that your organization conducts or makes available staff development and training, including ROMA, as an ongoing basis. Again, this is a staff function, but you as a board just need to be aware that staff development is a core element of the standards and that you may see in your budget as an organization that you approve every year a line for professional development. And if there hasn't been one in the past and there may be one in the future, this might be why. That the organization needs to show that it is having staff development and training available for staff. Doesn't mean they have to, there may not be a budget line because they may be doing it peer-to-peer, but you may find that there's an investment needed in that particular category. So again, HR sometimes can be a hot topic for staff and for boards. Many of you may have a personnel committee that could oversee these particular standards and certainly do perhaps the legwork around some of them to make sure that that documentation happens and to make sure it's on the board agenda to be reviewed and approved and documented. So with that, we'll close out HR and we will see you on the next video. Thank you.